अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, सिंध टेलीविजन न्यूज़ जे पर हमारे मेज़बान फयाज़ नाज। नाज़रीन हिन वक्त असीं मौजूद आहियूं अमेरिका जी रियासत कैलिफोर्निया जो शहर लॉस एंजलिस, जिते लॉस एंजलिस जेको अमेरिका जो इंतहाई चंद वॾनि शहरनि में शामिल थिए थो। उन जेका सिटी काउंसिल आहे उनजी मेंबर आहे मोनिका रोड्रिगज़ साहिबा। अचो तव्हां सां गुफ़्तगू कयूं। मोनिका रोड्रिगज़ साहिबा, thank you very much for your time. First of all, I want to know what is the formation of this district government?
So for the city of Los Angeles, we are a city that is the second largest in our country, in the entire United States of America. It represents nearly 4 million residents. Geographically, I represent a portion of the city of Los Angeles, which is the northern eastern part of the city limits. Some of my these are communities that I've lived in my whole life. But each of our districts, there are 15 council districts, and myself and each of my colleagues represent on the Los Angeles City Council roughly 250,000 residents in each of our districts.
So you represent District 7?
Correct.
So only 51% members are for the City Council of Los Angeles? 51?
15.
1-5?
1-5.
Okay.
So we have 15 elected council members. We have one mayor who's elected to, for citywide. And we also...
By popular?
Correct. And then we also have a city attorney that is elected citywide basis, and a city controller that manages all of our fiscal management, cutting checks for the city and carrying on those functions.
City manager mostly deals with the financial matters, or throughout all the matters?
I'm sorry, so
City managers deals with the financial matters, financial.
So the city controller. The city controller manages, yes. He is the elected official overseeing the fiscal activities of the city.
And what is the role of city manager then?
Oh, we don't have a city manager.
So you have city controller?
We have a city controller. We have a city, our city council, our city council members, along with, we have a city administrative officer and a legislative analyst that helps to manage our policy and some of our fiscal activity. But it's the city council as a whole, and in collaboration with the mayor, that makes the fiscal decisions and prioritization of how we prioritize our city resources.
If I want to understand different layers of the government in USA, you have federal government, then you have state government,
Correct.
Then you have county governments.
Correct.
And then you have city governments.
Correct.
So what is the role of city government and the county? Because in LA County, you have more than 80 cities.
Correct. So Los Angeles is the largest city within LA County. LA County represents over 10 million residents for the entire LA County, which and 88 cities, of which the city of Los Angeles is one. The way the county and the city actually function, they cover different portfolios of work, if you will. In the county government, they do have their own police force, which is the LA County Sheriff's Department, which covers some of the unincorporated areas, as well as just a variety of locations in the LA County area. But they handle public health. They cover a number of the social services components that isn't under the auspices of the city of Los Angeles. For the city of Los Angeles, we manage the day-to-day services that residents will count on most. Our trash collection, our local police service, our fire service. We manage the water and the power, as well as our management of paving our streets and all of those day-to-day issues that residents count on the most. We have decisions and oversight in land use, how, if, for example, as it relates to economic development, whether we would construct and give permissions for the construction of certain buildings in certain locations. Those are all issues that we have oversight in the city of Los Angeles.
So you have a few big projects, corporations in the city, such as Metro and the airport and the seaport. Who runs all that?
So on the Metro is actually a joint governance. So Metro, our subway systems, all of that is actually managed through joint governance with appointed members that are both representing the city of Los Angeles, other municipalities, other cities, and county government. But for the city of Los Angeles, we also have within our portfolio the governance of our airport. That's within the auspices of the city of Los Angeles governance system. Our port, which is our largest economic engine here in the city of Los Angeles. Our water and power. We have our own municipal water and power facilities as well.
So water and power, what do you mean by water and power?
So,
water means water for the
residential
water.
Yes, our residential water service. So in fact, my district happens to be home to the gateway of our water supply for the city of Los Angeles. Much of our water is imported, and we have in Sylmar, which is in my community, is where we actually have the water coming into the city of Los Angeles. In fact, overseeing a lot of public infrastructure projects is within the purview of the city council. And in that role, my office right now, we are in the process of providing more improved earthquake-proof piping for our water import as we speak. It comes from Northern California. We have an entire water system and water supply.
That is a kind of river, or?
It's the aqueduct, yes. So there's been a lot of, from Northern California, when the city of Los Angeles was constructed, our water was imported. We are a desert in the city of Los Angeles, and so our water needed to be imported, and it comes from their sources with the Colorado River, and this region is really shared, in terms of water imports. There's so many parts, not just in the city of Los Angeles, but Arizona, everyone is actually, we're all drawing on the same resource for our water supplies.
So what do you do to preserve the water?
So there's a number of efforts that we are engaged in here in the city of Los Angeles to help reclaim water and harvest rainwater, for example, because we have to be mindful. It is the most precious resource. And there's several cities and different parts of the world that have experienced severe water shortages. We've had significant drought in the city of Los Angeles and in the state of California. So there's been an ongoing effort to making sure that we reduce our potable water sources and are more mindful of what those water uses are for. So we've engaged in a number of public education campaigns, as well as a lot of water harvesting and conservation programs in order to help with that effort.
So you have reservoirs or dams to collect the water, or what do you do with that?
So in the city of Los Angeles, we have the Los Angeles River, and what we're actually in the process of doing is doing more efforts. We've actually made a significant investment as part of our city's infrastructure to do more to actually recapture and reclaim a lot of the water, much of which goes to the ocean. So we're in the process of kind of changing what has long been a tradition of getting the water off. We've paved a lot, in the city of Los Angeles, which is, nearly 500 square miles. There's a lot of roads, but we have to do more to capture that water because we've paved a lot in terms of roads and infrastructure. We're now doing more to incorporate how we can be better stewards of reclaiming that water and helping to recycle it.
You produce power to your city government?
We have a municipal water and power agency, yes.
How much megawatt you produce in the city?
That I don't have the information for you.
Okay, where from you get further electricity that has been provided by federal government, or?
No, I don't know that I have the bandwidth to give you that information.
Do you have any idea what is the total budget of the Los Angeles city?
So we are a $9 billion budget in the city of Los Angeles.
So where from that 9 billion have been collected?
Generally, it's a lot of property taxes and local taxes and assessments that have helped to build that budget over time.
So do you get the share of the sales tax?
Yes. So much of the way the taxes come, it's a lot through the state as well. Through the federal government, we each get little pieces that help to create that annual budget for us.
Federal and the state governments also fund you for projects? Or
I'm sorry, for the what?
do you get funds from the federal or the
From
state?
the federal government, yes, we do get funds for certain programs. For example, there are grants that are often made available for addressing certain needs in different communities, and we, throughout the nation, many cities oftentimes compete against one another in seeking some of those resources to help advance some of the critical infrastructure work or help restore staffing levels. So for example, we are just recently a recipient of a federal grant that is now going to help us restore some of the staffing levels at our local fire stations. And those are very critical pieces, but again, yes, there are opportunities for grants through the federal government and even through the state of California.
What is the role of federal government and the state government in the affairs of city? Do they intervene?
I'm sorry, what is the role of
federal government and the state government in the affairs of city government?
So, I mean, we are governed here locally. There are the laws of the land in this country, right, that govern, govern the nation. But locally, there are certain laws, for example, that are adopted here. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
So what are the major challenges to the city of Los Angeles?
What are the major challenges? Right now, one of the largest humanitarian crises of our time is homelessness. We have in the city of Los Angeles 33,000 people living on the streets or without permanent housing. We are endeavoring something that's never been done before, the construction of thousands of units of supportive housing to help facilitate many of these individuals getting out of living on the streets and into housing and supportive housing that provides the social services that are very necessary to help ensure their success and their long-term success and to stay housed. This is an incredible partnership that we've done with the county. And again, it's always sometimes challenging to help weave together the different layers of government to work together, but I think we've done so successfully and are continuing on the track of producing results.
When we talk about California and all over the world, and people think about Los Angeles, the Hollywood comes into mind. So what is the role of Hollywood do they support the local system, city government system, or they are creating problems for you?
No, Hollywood is absolutely one of the greatest economic engines in the city of Los Angeles, and there's so many jobs that actually come as a result of the film industry, which again, we are the home of Hollywood, and we're very proud of that. We work very collaboratively. There's a lot of filming that happens here in the city of Los Angeles. In my district, some of the more notable movies that have taken place, E.T., Sons of Anarchy, there's different shows and productions that happen here. And it's just part of, the economic engine of what makes Los Angeles work. That's it's a great job creator, and it's independent of the city of Los Angeles, but we do a lot to work in concert with that industry to help promote more economic activity and more filming in the city of Los Angeles, as well as in the state of California.
Thank you very much for your time and for your candid answers. I'm really grateful to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your interest in our governance structure. We pride ourselves in trying to be the very best and the example in the world of how I think we should be serving the needs of the people. So I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Should we start?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, सिंध टेलीविजन न्यूज़ जे पारां मां हमारे मेज़बान फयाज़ नाइच अमेरिका जी रियासत टेक्सास ऐं टेक्सास जे शहर ह्यूस्टन जे सिटी काउंसिल मेंबर अमेंडा एडवर्ड साहिबा सां असां गॾु आहियूं अॼु पाण सां गुफ़्तगू पिया ॿुधायूं. हेलो अमेंडा.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for your time. First of all, I would like to ask you how this system works of the Houston city government.
Yes, so the city of Houston is the fourth largest city in the U.S. and soon to be the third largest. It's a very big city, and so our municipal government is governed by, of course, the mayor. But in addition to the mayor, you have city council members who meet weekly. Our city council is composed of 16 members, 11 of which serve specific jurisdictions known as districts, and the other 5, myself included, we serve the tiny little district of the entire city of Houston. So we cover the full city. So you have 5 at-large council members in addition to the 11 district council members.
So 5 at-large council members, how they are elected?
We're elected at large, so the same way
From whole of the
entirety of the entire, yes, running for office for those positions is pretty challenging because you cover the full city of Houston. Everyone in the city votes for you, and then of course, once you're elected, you serve everyone in the city.
So you have been nominated by any party, or you don't?
No, actually on local municipal elections here in Houston, they're actually what we call nonpartisan, which means that we cannot utilize our party affiliations in a formal fashion. So of course, you don't have to denounce your party. You certainly can be as involved as you like with your party, but we have one large general election, and if need be, if you hadn't gotten 51% a majority of the vote, then you're in a runoff position, election.
That is that non-party's election is throughout the Texas
Every
state?
jurisdiction is different. So in our municipal, I'm not certain of all of the jurisdictions in Texas as to how they do it. It's not. It's more prevalent on a municipal basis than in other jurisdictions. Our state government, of course, is partisan, and most other levels of government are partisan.
How the city council works?
So city council is a body by which decisions are made, local decisions are made on large expenditures of the city, policy directions, code of ordinances are changed. One example of that is considering what permits are granted, for example, in terms of how high a building has to be above the flood level. Those are decisions that are made at the city council level. And we also explore a variety of ways in which we can help empower our communities as well, which may not necessarily be policy oriented, but more so pulling together resources to make initiatives happen.
So city government pays you regularly, or you work for yourself and once in a week you on the volunteer basis you go for the council?
It's considered a part-time position, so there is part-time pay associated with the role. Some members of council treat the job as a full-time position because of the amount of time it takes up. Some members of city council do treat it like a part-time role and lean very heavily on their staff members in order to make the office function. So it just depends on the particular city council member in terms of whether they work or not, in addition to serving on city council, but it is designed to be a part-time position, and that is what the pay is.
And that is to be decided by city council member, or
Yes.
the council decides whether he will be or she will be working on the part-time or the full-time?
No, it is completely their discretion, but everyone gets paid to work part-time. So there is no increase for your decision. If you should make the decision that you really need to devote your full energy to it, there is no increase in pay that you get. It's just really kind of, what your personal circumstances will allow.
Okay, when you meet in the council, that is a body of 17 people, 1 mayor and 16 city council
Correct.
members. So public can come in here.
They actually have to be open to the public. There is no closed session in the Houston City Council. Many jurisdictions have what you call executive session or closed session. We are not allowed to do that. So anytime we have a quorum meeting to deliberate on council actions or city actions, we have to open those meetings to the public, and we have to provide notice to the public at least 72 hours in advance. That's in accordance with state law.
What is the process of issuing notice to the public?
Usually you place that on a website. We have our municipal websites, and sometimes I think they post it in other places. The city secretary will have it posted in certain locations. applications. And so there's a process, and our committees have to post their meetings as well. So it's not just the meeting of the whole at the city council meeting, but it's also when we have our budget meeting and all of these other meetings that we have as we deliberate issues. You're not allowed to deliberate behind closed doors. Those have to be open to the public.
People even can participate in the discussions or
Yes. So there's always an opportunity for what we call public comment. Generally, on Tuesday afternoons, we have something called public session, where it's a full session devoted simply to allowing the public to come, voice their concerns about items that are coming up on the next day's agenda, or a future date, agenda for a future date for City Council, or just to simply express their thanks, grievance of any sort. They just simply have to say what they're coming to discuss, and that dictates how much time they're allotted. And so any member of the public can sign up. There's never such a thing as coming too many times. You can sign up every week if you want to, and that happens on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, we conduct the city council business. So that's when we vote on items. We take into consideration some of the comments from the day before. And then, of course, the comment period is always allowed at the end of a committee meeting as well. So if we had a budget committee meeting, after we've finished deliberating, there'll be an item on the agenda that allows public comment.
So budget committee meeting, what is the process of budget making? You are on the
process of, yes, I'm on the committee. I'm vice chair of the committee. So when I started serving in my term in 2016, I think they told me the bathrooms were to the left and the big budget deficit was to the right. So I had to get to work very early on, but it's been a lot of fun. It's a complex system we have here at the city. I serve as the vice chair of the budget committee. And every spring, because our fiscal year is a July 1st to a June 30th cycle, we do our budgeting process in the spring. And that is comprised of the mayor developing what he thinks should be a part of our budget, taking into account what our anticipated budgetary deficits might be, making the necessary reductions, and then they are presented to city council members to review privately as council members, but then to have workshops. So we have each department present to us, do a presentation to us where we scrutinize their budget, ask questions about trends, patterns, questions that came up upon our review of their budget, and they present to us some justification of why they need the funding that they are asking. We do that for each department that's in the budget as part of the general operating budget. So we have the general fund, which is basically our operational budget, and then we have what we call enterprise funds that are self-contained. So an example of that would be our airport systems, where revenues that they generate usually are self-contained within them. The combined utility system is another enterprise fund. So our $5 billion budget is broken up pretty much in half. We're a little bit less than half of the general operating revenue in the general fund is about over $2 billion, and then the rest are comprised are part of the enterprise funds, which are separate and self-sustaining.
Okay, 5 billion is a huge amount. Where from you get?
So we get it from a combination of a variety of sources. One of the largest sources of revenue that we generate is from our property taxes here in the city. So the city gets a portion of the property tax. We don't tax by ourselves. The county taxes, the school districts tax, they all have their own separate tax for a person. But you don't write separate checks. You write one big check at the end of the day, and then that check gets disseminated with the tax assessor's office. So you have property tax. We also have fees that we collect. So some of those enterprise funds, there are fees, licensures, all sorts of things like that, tickets that get written, court fines, all kinds of things like that are part of that revenue generation. Some of the sales tax goes into some of the enterprise functions. So there's a little bit of that, not very much. And then we have other forms of revenue streams. So when we settle cases, sometimes we get paid, sometimes we have to pay out. So there are a variety of different kinds of revenue sources that the city has.
So mainly
grants, things like that.
Mainly property tax and some portion.
The property tax is the primary space. That's the
what is the rate of property tax here?
So it's a complicated situation. So you're getting into the weeds with me. So we have what's called a revenue cap in the city of Houston. So this is a very unusual feature, and it's one that was imposed by the voters on the city. And so our revenue, our property tax is limited. We are limited in terms of how much property tax we can actually take in as a city. So there's a formula that control for inflation and growth in population, plus they give you a certain threshold percentage. If we ever reach that formula peak, then we have to lower our property tax rate in order not to exceed the amount we're supposed to collect. So what does that mean? That means our tax rate goes down. It's been going down annually, despite the fact that our need has been increasing. And until we remove the revenue cap, we're not going to be able to take in the property tax revenues that really would support the growth that we have in the city. So for example, some of that example in terms of police officers, in our city we have below what is the recommended minimum amount of police officers. In fact, we're about 5,100 police officers. Just to get to 6,000, it'll cost us well over $100 million. Yet, because of that property revenue tax, we have forgone at that much plus in revenue generation. So it's a small amount of savings for the property tax owner, but it's a huge impact on the city in terms of our ability to provide services. So that's an area that will require voters to repeal the revenue cap. And that's a hot topic around town because, of course, people want you to provide a certain threshold or level of service. But, of course, as you know, it costs money to do those things. And so drawing the connection between how much it costs to provide the services and the services that people expect or deserve are points of contention as well.
What other taxes are levied by the city government?
What other taxes?
Yes.
Well, we do property taxes. I mean, in terms of the city or just a resident in the city. So if you're a resident in the city, you're going to get the school district is going to tax you. You're going to have to pay your property taxes on the Harris County, or if you live in Harris County, which is the larger county, you have to pay property taxes. Most of the taxes you pay actually go to the school district. Most people don't know that. But we take probably maybe 20-something% of the amount. We have over 10 different taxing jurisdictions depending on where you live in terms of special districts and things like that. You could have that up to that amount of taxing jurisdictions, but the portion of your tax bill that really goes to the city is probably hovering a little bit, kind of close to a quarter, but the school district is much higher than that.
Who decides that these taxes will be taken by the city government? You decide by yourself, or the city, or the state government, or the federal government?
How much taxation you have as a city?
No. This tax, for example, property tax will be levied by the.
So property tax, everybody has limits on the property tax. So we have a city charter.
It is decided by your council by itself, or it was a power delegated by the state government that you, as a city, you can take the property tax?
So there's several spaces in which property taxes are governed. You have your state law restrictions on taxes, first and foremost. So you have that layer, which is state law. Then cities that are home rule cities, like the city of Houston, they have what we call city charters. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like your governing document, most of which to change things in your charter requires voter approval. And in the charter, there's going to be further limitations. So we have state constitutional limits, we have limits that are coming from state law, then we have limits that we impose on ourselves from our city charter. Our voters then said, despite those limits, we're going to further impose some limits. And then within those constructs, as a council, we then can impose or increase or lower the taxes or what have you. And so what we've done since I've been on council, we've actually lowered the tax rate annually so that we can comply with the revenue cap. But the revenue cap has been imposed on us by the voters, and they said we don't want continued growth of spending or expenditure, so we're going to curtail the amount of revenue you have access to. And so that's their way of saying we're going to slow the amount of spending that you're doing. And so what ends up happening is we make a lot of cuts, make a lot of reductions, our austerity measures, And then we end up going to having to dip into what we call our general fund, which is, you know, the amount that's remaining within our general operating budget that doesn't exceed the threshold in our financial policies that we have to maintain. So we keep a certain threshold in there, but there's always a delta, and so we can utilize it, but the goal should be to get to what we call a structurally balanced budget. And a structurally balanced budget means that your expenditures never exceed the revenue that you take in, so much that you have to go then and dip into your general fund revenue to offset what your expenditures are.
Do your government, city government, get funding from the state government or the federal government?
You get funding in different ways. So typically it's in the form of grants. So there are a lot of, you know, federal Department of Transportation dollars that come into the city. We don't govern transportation itself, but there are bridges, there are highway. We just got a big highway, flood mitigation grant from the federal government, state. We get grants, we get loans in terms of different programs that they have access to. You apply for them. So it's not just it's not an allocation of funding or resources as a matter of course. It really is something you have to apply for, like you would in a grant situation. In the case of Harvey, we are getting money. We will eventually get money from the federal government, and the state will disseminate that to us. So if there's disaster dollars, things like that, we get annually CDBG dollars, which are community development block grants from the federal government for housing. So there are a variety of different types of funding sources that we get in that come from the federal government primarily, but also the state, but they're usually in the form of a grant that has some criteria associated with it. Not just a, here's some money and good luck, even though that would be nice.
Anyways, thank you very much for your time and
Yes.
for your very eloquent explanation about the working and functions of the city council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.